Our third type of bonding is metallic bonding, and it always takes me back to watching gold being poured into an ingot in Johannesburg, which is known as the City of Gold. So let's have a look at the properties of metals, metallic substances, and how the bonding occurs in these. So with a metal, so if this was gold, I would have loads and loads and loads, bazillions of gold ions, all arranged very beautifully in rows. And the electrons are free to move around. So we call it a sea of delocalized electrons. They don't have to stay local, they can move around. And that's what helps the metal to be able to conduct electricity, because we know electrons is a flow of electrons. Current is a flow of electrons. Okay, so that structure, which we need to be able to describe, positive ions with a sea of delocalized electrons, allows the metal to have a high melting and boiling point. The exception is mercury, but the reason why it has high melting and boiling points is because the bonds are very, very strong. So you need a huge amount of energy to break the bonds to turn it from a solid to a liquid to a gas. And conducting electricity, as I've said to you, the delocalized electrons can move, can carry the charge, which is electricity. Metals, we know, are good at conducting heat. If I put my teaspoon in my cup of coffee and leave it there for a while, my teaspoon gets hot. And that's because those ions vibrate, and as they vibrate, they pass the heat along until it gets to the tip of my metal spoon. They also malleable. I love this word. Malleable means bendable. And the reason why they're bendable is because of all those layers, perfect layers, they can slide over each other. And because of the strong force of attraction, they don't break like a non-metal would snap. They're also ductile, which means I can make it really, really, really super thin without it snapping, like what happens when I take a pencil, graphite pencil, and sharpen it. If it goes too thin, it just snaps. Now, the reason why metals can be made into wires is because, again, of these very, very strong metallic bonds between the rows of ions, keeping them so carefully bonded together. So that's why I can make it super thin without it snapping. So this flow diagram can help us work out whether a substance is metallic, ionic, giant, or simple covalent. So for example, if you ask, does it conduct electricity? If it does, when it is a solid, it's got to be metallic. If it doesn't, I've got to ask my question, does it conduct electricity if I melt it? Then it could be ionic. If the answer is no, I ask myself, does it have a high melting point? If it does have a high melting point, it's most likely going to be a giant covalent substance. And if it has a low melting point, it's going to be a small covalent molecule. So this is where the examiner is going to ask or test your ability to analyze information, to make deductions about whether a substance is a ionic, covalent, or metal substance. So if we look at this table, I've got a couple of unknown substances, and it describes their ability to conduct electricity when they are a solid, when they're melted, or when they're dissolved in water. And it also gives me an indication of the melting and the boiling point of the substance. I can straight away see that W is water because I know its melting and boiling point is 0 and 100. So here's a couple of questions which I'd like you to answer. Pause the video, have a go, and then start the video again and see if you got the right answers. Okay, how did you do? Let's have a look. Choose a substance which at room temperature is a solid. So room temperature is about 20 degrees Celsius. It hasn't yet melted. So T hasn't yet melted, U hasn't yet melted, V hasn't yet melted, W has, X hasn't yet melted, and Y has, in fact, it's melted and already turned into a gas because 20 degrees will be on this side of this number line. So that's your answer for your first one. The liquid is obviously the W because at 20 degrees the water has already melted, turning from ice into liquid water, and Y for the gas. Which substance is an ionic substance? And give a reason for your answer. Now, you would have got X because if we look at the table over here, it conducts electricity when it's melted or dissolved in water. That is our clue. You've got to be a bit of a detective as you analyze the data that you've been given. Which substance is made out of molecules that change to ions when they are dissolved in water? And again, that is my ionic substance. And we know when it is dissolved in water, it is able to form ions and conduct electricity. So as a salt, the particles are very close together as a solid, but as it melts or dissolves, the particles are further away, and that's what allows the electricity to flow through. And the last question, which two substances could be metals? V and T. And what I was looking for here, both V and T are able to conduct electricity as a solid, and they've both got high melting and boiling points relatively. So, hope you did well. There's more practice in the quiz on Show My Homework. Excellent work. Don't forget to print off the summary of all of this, read through it again this afternoon, and see if you can get that stuck in your head. Good luck with your revision.